It's that time again for the assault on your ears we call Lower Dorks, a Star Trek Lower Decks podcast. I'm Aaron, and with me as always is Stavros. Stavros, let's start by mixing a drink.
Yes, let's. Today we are doing a dark stormy, which you turned me on to just today. It is a mix of ginger beer, rum, and a splash of lime juice. The rum in question that you recommended was the Kraken Black Spiced Rum. And you know what? I know how much you love tentacles. Maybe, I guess I'm not surprised that you picked the Kraken here.
Yeah, I was feeling inspired by our last episode. You did, however, slightly sidestep the name. It is a Dark and Stormy, although we may not be able to use that name, as it was a subject of a tense legal battle between rum manufacturers some years back.
Ooh, dramatic.
Indeed. But yes,
dramatic drink.
The lime juice is usually replaced with a slice of lime. I personally am lazy, and slicing limes is too much work for me.
It is a lot of work. And I have to say, I'm always a fan of mixed drinks, and, you're trying to turn me on to a lot of whiskeys and whatnot on this show, but any kind of mixed drink like this, thumbs up, a good mix of flavors. I'm on board with this one.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's talk about the episode.
Let's do that. Let me tell you a little bit about this episode. So in this episode, the Lower Deckers are separated into three groups. In fact, this might be the first episode with three simultaneous plots. But the first group, Boimler, who is desperate to have the visiting Lieutenant Tom Paris sign his collectible plate, even though the Cerritos' upgraded security systems don't recognize him. Tendi and Mariner, who are dispatched to retrieve Dr. Ta'ana's sexy family heirloom. And Rutherford, who desperately wants to find out why Lieutenant Shaxs is back from the dead. Ultimately, Boimler barrels through the ship and eventually gets punched out by Paris. Tendi and Mariner destroy the heirloom and fail to get it fixed, only to find that Ta'ana wanted the box. And Rutherford learns the reason Shaxs is back would give any man the ultimate existential horror.
Well,
not unlike the Kraken from our beverage.
Running pretty quickly there. Spoiler alert, buddy. I haven't watched the episode yet.
Well, you know what? This recording's going to be a problem.
Oh, shit. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to wing it. So, yeah, the return of Shaxs. I was right. He's not dead. Didn't happen.
Yeah. We called it, I feel.
I feel like we were ahead of the game on this one. On the other hand, they start off the episode without an explanation and then quickly backpedal to throw one in. So I'm not sure how I feel about this.
I wanted to ask you, does Shaxs being back, it's funny and unexplained because, as we all know, Lower Deckers don't really hear the full story ever, except for Rutherford, who may be scarred for life now. But does it cheapen Shaxs' sacrifice for you in the end of Season 1 where he sacrifices himself for his baby bear?
It does not. You know what? It's a comedy show, and ultimately it's based on episodic shows where they tend to return to the status quo. And
sure.
Sometimes I just feel like it's like Jadzia's sacrifice or loss in DS9. It didn't add much to the show. It just kind of threw a wrench into things. I just don't really care one way or the other, I guess.
Well, now we have two chiefs of security, so what's going to happen there?
Well, we don't know that Shaxs is back to full duty, Maybe he's just working through his stuff.
Whatever his resurrection experience was.
Yes.
But Shaxs ended up being a fan favorite after Season 1, so I'm glad he's back. It is hilarious the way that they are talking about it, as you mentioned, so... you know what? I don't even care. Maybe they're co-chiefs of security.
Yeah.
They're both doing the job.
Doesn't really matter. He's back and apparently emotionally scarred and deeply terrified.
Yes.
I do want to comment something, though. In the Shaxs return scene, prior to that, there is a scene that I really love, and it really made me realize why Mariner hates Jen.
Yes. We're getting more insight into this Jen relationship every episode now.
Heckling Boimler as he tries to use the replicator that does not want to give him the food he so desires.
Yes, I feel like Jen's not on anyone's good list right now. She's not earning anyone any points.
Yes.
But if we're going to talk about Boimler, though, I was getting strong Sixth Sense vibes, that M. Night Shyamalan movie. I feel like, is he dead? Or like, is something with the transporter accident? Is he not real? Like, what's happening? And then, but even though Mariner obviously recognizes him and speaks to him and stuff, I was starting to like doubt myself. Like, whose security protocols are that bad? And the answer is the USS Cerritos.
You know, or it's entirely possible that he is not True Blue Boimler. And as I suspected, he is a replicant. And that's why the ship didn't recognize him. Because he's close, but no cigar.
Yeah. Well, he does say that the glitch is rectified right at the end of the episode. So, I mean, if
maybe
we're
they
his word for it.
Maybe they did a new biometric scan, and that's why the ship recognizes him now.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Who knows what's going on? If this is gonna turn into some kind of Boimler shenanigans later in the season, I know it, but it's too early to put my finger on what exactly is happening just yet. Yeah. But something's going on for sure.
So the things we see happen to Boimler: he gets crushed in a door.
Yes.
He nearly gets evaporated in the tubes.
Mm-hmm.
He nearly gets asphyxiated by a gas-filled chamber, all because the ship doesn't recognize him. I feel like there's basic safety protocols that are missing here, and I feel like this is a trend of just Starfleet being super negligent towards OSHA standards. Not just exploding consoles now.
No.
Now it's also literally the ship will murder you if you're in the wrong room at the wrong time.
You know, Cerritos is a diplomatic ship too. I mean, I hope they configure that stuff right whenever they have guests on board. You can't just have doors like crushing visitors just because they're not recognized by the ship. That's no good.
I don't know. I think you can do that. Just make excuses.
Yeah, I mean,
shift the blame.
Oh man, although continue to talk about Boimler, so there's a scene where he introduces plate to Tom Paris plate, which of course, as anyone on the internet knows, is all the rage, and I think you can buy it on the official Star Trek store website now, if you really want to get yourself a Tom Paris Lower Decks style plate. But when he first has the plate, he like leans down and he like pops open a crate. And he has like all of the plates of all of the Voyager senior staff in there. And I felt a flash of like embarrassment because I don't have plates. I'm not quite there. But I do have like binders full of autographed pictures of Star Trek actors. And I'm like, oh God, am I Boimler? Oh no. And that was sad.
Well, nobody really wanted to say anything.
Is everyone knew, but no one was saying anything?
Yeah. But yeah, you know, I love the plate thing, but I love the, like, in-universe logic. That's Starfleet. Like, somebody has to make these plates, right? I mean, they don't have to physically make them. They can just be replicated. But somebody has to design them, you know? This has to be a thing that they do. And that is hilarious. Like, it was one thing in
Who's doing it?
You know what? It's probably just some, like, group of Starfleet officers or, you know, enlisted men who work at a starbase and never actually get out, and they're just obsessed with the adventures of the bravest ships on the frontier.
And, you know, another break in the fourth wall, just like those old scientists, got the VOI abbreviation. I like Rivers like, that does save a lot of time.
Nobody calls it VOI,
just like
damn
typing it. People abbreviate it, boy. Come on.
In written form, not when they speak.
Yeah. Well, yeah, maybe that's the joke.
But I do want to comment on something. So Tom Paris does eventually show up, and Boimler does finally get his big meet and greet after his bizarre adventures through the ship.
Yes.
And Tom Paris immediately starts beating the crap out of Boimler.
I know. Poor Boimler, man.
But I do want to comment on something. Tom Paris mistakes him for a Kazon. Other side of the galaxy. What, a decade away the last time he saw a Kazon? I mean, that reeks of, like, PTSD. I mean, what the hell are these counselors doing that he has untreated PTSD going on here?
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, judging by the counselor on the Cerritos, I feel like, you know, of all the counselors we've seen in Star Trek shows, some of them just aren't that good.
I don't think most of them are that good. I mean, like, you got Troy, who's all like, these aliens, I'm sensing anger from them. And it's like, no shit, they shooting at you. They ain't doing it for funsies.
That's right.
But I love the fact, though, that the rest of the bridge crew, as Tom Paris is beating Boimler up, they just kind of stand around and watch.
They just stand there, yeah.
Like, nobody tries to get involved. Like, you feel like this is a cathartic moment for them. They've always wanted to take out their frustrations on Boimler.
I like the officer like calls the captain's attention because that's the time where Mariner's ramming the shuttle into the Cerritos, and he's just like, "Captain." The captain's like, sure.
I'm going to deal with this. You two kids have fun."
Yeah. Poor Boimler. Joke at Boimler's expense, but like, yeah, Tom Paris really flies. I mean, just because someone falls out of Jeffrey's tube into the bridge, you just assume they're a Kazon assassin. He's got some issues.
So, enough about the B plot. What about the A and C plot?
Ooh, which one do you think is the A plot?
Oh, it's so many plots. Girls' Adventure.
Okay, that's the A plot. Okay, yeah, there's a lot happening there, and you know what? I was on board with this, and they break the fourth wall here too, where they're like, like we haven't been on adventures together, and it's like, yes, we know, you've seen season 1.
Well, I mean, that's not really fourth wall breaking. I mean, it's very in universe. They haven't gone on any missions together.
Yeah, it's both, I think, is what's going on there for sure. But it's funny, they talk a lot to each other about, the big plot and the conflict between them is that neither one of them has spoken a lot about themselves for various reasons, and they are both offended in certain ways by that. But it's interesting because we hear we know there's more to Mariner's backstory, and she's purposefully withholding it, and she even says as much here. And Tendi has similar issues because she is Orion and Starfleet, has to deal with constant, I don't know if you call it racism, I guess so, anti-Orion racism. So you get to see these two similar sides of these two characters.
Yeah, and actually, I'm glad that we're finally seeing that Mariner has way more of a backstory than they've ever led on to before. We've seen hints of it, but you don't really get too in-depth. Although I do find it interesting that they chose to have her stationed on DS9 during the Dominion War. I thought that was an interesting choice.
Yeah, and we've seen her there in flashbacks, I think, right?
Yeah, but you didn't know whether she was assigned there or whether it was just like, shore leave.
Right.
But now we have confirmation.
Point. Yeah. I want to know. I hope it comes. I hope we get more information about that later in the show.
But, all sorts of also great background bits. You see the signs for Quarks and Vix.
Yes. So is that the same Vic Fontaine hologram, do you suppose?
I would assume so. They had given him a lot of autonomy at the end of DS9, and I think they even had made a deal where his program was just constantly running. I think it would be hilarious if it turned out that him and Quark had a huge rivalry going. Fighting for customers across the galaxy.
And their places are just literally across the street from each other, and they just stare at each other down.
Yeah, that's all they do. Yeah. There's Quark and Vic Fontaine holograms all over the universe, just opening bars across from each other just in an effort to take each other down.
I love it. But they go to some extreme or remote places. They go to the place to pick up the totem, and then they go to the Orion pirate.
Yes, but in between those, they go to, I can't remember how to pronounce the name, Bonestell? Okay. Where they're going to get the thing fixed, right? And that's where they run to the Nausicaans, which is a callback.
Yes.
That is where Picard got a knife through his heart, both figuratively and literally.
Yes, and they even play some Domjot.
Yeah.
A little weird pool game.
It's more billiards than pool.
Ah, yes.
But I really hope this leads to an episode down the road where we get a reverse tapestry episode where it shows who Mariner would have been if she had gotten stabbed through the heart by the Nausicaans, and she's all like, "No, that sucks. I like where I am." And it's all Q trying to get her to take a different path. Would be fantastic.
I would like to see them bring back Q for a more serious role, because before he's just there for some quick lulls. But you know what? If you're gonna have someone stabbed through the heart, maybe it should be Mariner.
Damn, that's cold, man. That's cold. But after they get done with that, they go to the Orion planet, and that is just fantastic interaction.
Yes. And what is the title that she gets from from her Orion associates?
Mistress of the Winter Constellations.
What does it mean?
Well, the Winter Constellations, I can't think of what the Winter Constellations are. There's actually constellations on Earth referred to as the winter constellations because they're more visible from Earth. I don't know if Orion is one of them or not because, I haven't been that nerdy since I was a little kid. But fantastic title.
Oh, yeah.
So I also want to do in that exchange, just before that, when they're meeting her cousin. Was it her cousin?
Yes.
Mariner goes through her attractions and the people she's had flings with. And most of them are pretty good. But then she gets to bad Binars. And I'm like, I don't even know how that would work. The proto-Borg aliens.
Yeah. Just one of them, I mean, they're a race of duos, or at least duos.
Yes.
So she just has relationships with one of them. I feel like just to make the other one mad, because that's just how Mariner rolls.
Well, they are bad Binars, so like good Binars would be, in sync with their pairs.
Yes.
I don't know why. I found that reference hilarious.
Yes, we do get a glimpse into Mariner's private life. And speaking of that, they're kind of joking the whole time about how Mariner and Boimler are usually the duo, and Tendi and Rutherford are usually the duo. And Tendi's like, are you and Boimler like a couple? And Mariner's like, oh god, oh geez, like, oh, he's more of like a pet. And then she asks Tendi, he's like, oh, are you and Rutherford a couple? And I was like, leaned forward in my chair a little bit as I was watching this, because of course, as we all know, Tenderford is the best relationship in the show.
Whatever, dude. Rutherlips all the way.
And she says something like she doesn't deny it, but she says something non-committal.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know,
like,
right? I don't think so.
She says like not really or something like that, like something non-committal but not a denial. And I was like, yes, that means that it's gonna be a will they, won't they? I'm fine with this. Yeah. It's gonna be the best.
Yeah, whatever you say. I just like that Mariner, like every implication of her being interested in someone, immediately just creeps her out because she had the same response to her attraction to Ransom.
Yes, that's right. So ethical.
I think she has issues she needs to work through. Perhaps she should go back to counseling.
Well, you know what? We've been over this. The counselors in Starfleet are mediocre at best. So, is it that surprising that Mariner still has issues that she needs to work out?
I just find it, based on what we've seen so far in the this series and every other series, I find it amazing how few people have serious psychological issues.
Yeah, I mean, Rutherford got half of his head torn out.
Yeah, but he doesn't remember it, so it's fine.
Yeah.
No existential nightmare there.
Yeah, well, he has the existential nightmare to replace that. So even he is scarred. But no, I mean, I love to see this duo happening. Tendi talks a lot about her need to please people, which of course we've seen in earlier episodes. She even says in this episode, like, her need to please people has kind of obfuscated her own past and talking about herself. And Mariner, of course, has her own reasons. She says that, by the time she makes friends, they're all promoted. And of course, as we all know, Mariner spends half of her professional career in the brig. So she's not getting promoted anytime soon, I guess. So I found it to be pretty compelling and a kind of unlikely pairing that I enjoyed.
Sounds like she's got some abandonment issues.
I think so. Do you have any hypotheses as to what exactly happened with her? Or is it still too early?
Yeah, you know what? I could hypothesize all day. Maybe we'll do an episode about it.
Maybe after season 2.
But we still have a whole nother plot to get to.
Well, you know what? Before we move on, let's talk about the box and the totem.
Oh boy,
and
yes.
Dr. T'Ana. At first I was like, how much are they anthropomorphizing Dr. T'Ana? Because she's an anthropomorphic cat. But as we saw here, she can also be 100% cat and like the box.
And that's a problem because she's supposed to just be an alien, right? But I mean, that is a hilarious scene nonetheless.
Yes. Although, how about the ramming speed, the shuttle bouncing off the shields because there was a bee in the cabin?
I feel like that wouldn't happen. I feel like the consequence of being at ramming speed and hitting something would be a lot worse for the shuttle.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I mean, it's obviously done for the comedy value, But the little like tink sound effect when the shuttle bounces off the shields was amazing.
Comedy gold. Great reminder that this is a comedy show.
And I think I'm going to use put the bee in the brig. It's the bee's fault when you put the bee in the brig. I think I'm going to use that next time I'm in trouble.
But yes, and then they finally get back and didn't really care about the totem. And it's funny because the entire episode I remember thinking, why are they still using totems when they have holodecks if they have to, release those urges? And lo and behold, she didn't need to release those urges.
Well, I mean, you know what? You're bringing up the holodeck, and that raises all kinds of problems. Like, why couldn't she just go into a holographic box? And
why couldn't she just make a new box? Wrong. I'm going to assume that there's something mental about it. Like, there has to be some sort of connection,
Right.
But who knows? I mean, maybe she should see a therapist about it.
Well, you know what? The Cerritos has, in fact, one of those.
Yeah, and apparently he's terrible.
Okay, well, I mean, shall we cover the last plot then? The Rutherford Shaxs plot, which we've already talked about some.
The first rule of Resurrection Club is you don't talk about Resurrection Club.
Yes. You're satisfied without having a real explanation for Shaxs' return then, huh?
I am, but it raises so many questions, the little tiny bit we get about it.
Yes, and the Shaxs talking to Rutherford in the turbo lift about like what exactly the experience was amazing. Very well executed. Something about facing down, like you die and then you go to the Black Mountain.
Yes, do you know about the Black Mountain?
Is that, and do you suppose that's a Bajoran afterlife thing, or is that just
I don't know.
Something else.
We know that the Klingons have a different afterlife that doesn't involve a Black Mountain or facing down 3 specters of your father and then force-feeding you your
specters.
own heart.
Correct. Yes. But now Rutherford is, I hope his implant comes with convenient memory removal technology because he's scarred for life now.
Yes. Though, I love the scene where Rutherford is, like, imagining what happened to Shaxs.
Yes! That was a great scene. And there's all kinds of little Easter eggs in there, too. Like, there's a Neelix costume Rutherford. And I was wondering if that had to do... At first I was like, are they bringing Tuvix into this? Then I was like, I guess it's just a regular Neelix. I guess not.
Yes.
They're not quite opening that can of worms.
Yeah, and you saw Shaxs from all sorts of different timelines. I love It's always Christmas in the Nexus.
Yeah. And one is very like, why did T'Pol have that weird hair that one year?
Yeah.
So, like, what the...
The better question is, why did Rutherford know about that?
I don't know.
His imagination created that Shaxs.
Oh man, yeah, lots of various Shaxs in that shot.
And then when they're discussing the ways people come back from the dead, it's like a reference to all previous episodes of people coming back from the dead.
Yes.
Obviously, they reference the Nexus twice.
Yeah,
they reference Scotty being trapped in a transport buffer.
Yes.
What were the other ones?
There's like Borg rebuilding him.
They reference Sela in being the daughter of a time-displaced Tasha Yar. It's just good.
Right. And yet we get no answers. Something about the Black Mountain. We'll never know unless Rutherford cracks in the future.
But apparently even hearing about it is so mentally scarring, it just messes with you forevermore.
Yeah, and I can only hope. I mean, Lower Decks has done some surprising things with they don't just one and done characters and other things. So I'm hoping that this comes back and is somehow relevant in future episodes. I can only hope.
Yeah, I mean, Jet even came back in this episode, and I still don't like it.
Yeah, that's right. You know what? He seemed like a stand-up guy offering to open doors for Boimler.
He also wanted to carry him over the threshold. I feel like there's some unrequited love there.
Maybe that's the relationship that this show needs after all is Jet and Bradward.
Now,
Jetward.
The only relationship that Jet needs to get involved with is with the vacuum of space.
Wow, is he quickly becoming your least favorite character?
You know what? Actually, that's the relationship that needs to happen. Him and Jen. They need to get together.
Oh, yes! Perhaps the disliked character pair, and they become like a powerhouse that opposes the Lower Deckers. I can see that happening.
Yes, let's start a petition. We got to make this happen.
Someone go on Twitter and get Mike McMahon on the line and say, you know what, we need the ultimate nemesis on board the Cerritos. Well, gosh, we've gone through pretty much everything. What else? Is anything else stick out in your mind about this episode?
So one thing that I noticed, or rather noticed a lack of, is where's Paris's wedding ring? Are him and B'Elanna no longer an item?
You know, his cameo is so, like the real Paris's cameo is so short. It's hard to say, but you're right, there is no wedding ring on his finger, and they make a point of him showing it in the last season of Voyager, so
yep.
Is it a statement about his character, or is it just something that escaped the animation team?
Yeah, or did they just forget to tell the animators, hey, this guy wears a wedding ring?
Right.
Or maybe
I've seen Riker.
Maybe they got back and they were just like, you know what? We have better options now, so it's over.
Our options were constrained based on the availability of whatever the crew complement of Voyager was, 100 and whatever people. Hopefully, we can only hope that Paris comes back and we get some clue as to the fate of his wife and child.
Or, his wife and child show up.
Oh, yes, or that.
And there's still no explanation.
Neither of them are wearing rings, and they're fighting, and you can't tell if it's a lover's quarrel or if they just hate each other after the divorce. It's just unclear.
Yep, I can live with that.
Well, what else? I feel like we've talked out a lot of what happens in this episode. Are we out of things?
I think I am not only out of things, I am also out of drink.
Well, that would do it then.
And since that's the end of my tall glass, it's time to call it a night. You can catch us again next week for a review of episode 4. In the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter at Lower Dorks, or for a more intimate encounter, you can use the word infer when you obviously meant imply, and wait for Stavros to show up and tell you how you were wrong.
I look forward to correcting you. Please make the error at any time.